Welcome to Beyond Sundays, a podcast from two friends trying to follow Jesus more closely. Odds are you won't always agree with us and will stumble along the way, but we promise to be open and honest all the way through. I'm Hannah here with Matt. We do have a website that you can use to keep all of our show links and our socials all in one place, so check out beyondsundays.pod.com. We are so happy that we have listeners, and we genuinely thank you for fitting us into your busy life. It would really help us grow the community if you would follow us, rate, and review us on Apple and Spotify. We do have the best community around.
We do have the best community around, and I'm going to give a plea to our community real quick here. Beyond Sundays is open for business and ads. Season 2 is coming in January upon us. We have some changes. We're looking to do some different things, and we'd like to partner with some businesses. So listeners, if you yourself own a business or you know someone who might be interested in advertising on this here program, please get at us, beyondsundays@gmail.com, and we'd love to talk things over with you. And it's time to grow Beyond Sundays even more than it is growing now. So
it's time to grow Beyond Sundays.
Oh, time to go Beyond Sundays.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, that's
we do love everybody though, and like truly really appreciate your support. We're not to the year yet. We can get sappy on the year episode, but like it's been a great journey for both of us. So I just really appreciate everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I started our first episode saying I hope I didn't fart on here. But today I feel like I'm making all kinds of weird sounds, like my water bottle. I don't know. I feel so
I haven't
clunky.
heard even one sound. Not at all.
You didn't?
Nope.
I literally took the water bottle right in front of the mic like a dummy. It was like
well, shouts to Zoom. It canceled all of it. We're good.
Okay, that is really good. We're good. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And I think I know you well enough to know this answer.
Okay.
I'm just curious how you're.
Now I want you to answer for me. I don't want to answer. I want you to see.
Okay. Yeah. How well do you feel like you handle uncomfortable social situations?
How well? Are you asking for a scale here? Do you just want me to use words? How do you want me to?
Okay, yeah, let's do a scale.
Okay.
0 to 10, 10 being like you work your way. No, let's do 0 to 5. 10 is
okay.
Too
Good. For the love of God, do not say 6 or 7.
Oh gosh, I don't know how bad it is in high school, but it's horrible in grade school. But 0 to 5, 1 to 5.
Okay.
1 being I'm really bad in these uncomfortable social situations. 5 being I am a master at handling them.
You give me your number for me. What do you think?
I think that you're definitely I don't know. It depends on if we're doing like the Danielson scale where you're allowed to be perfect or not. I would say if you're not, you're like a 4.8. If it's okay to give it, I'd say everybody, let's do a 4.
Yeah. Everybody's got room. Sure.
You're very good at maneuvering through those situations. That's what I would do. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
you do it with humor.
On the inside, I feel like I'm a 1. On the inside.
No, you don't.
Where like yes, 100%. I feel the awkwardness. I feel it so much. Now, it kind of depends on what kind of situation we're talking about. If you're talking like an awkward social situation, like way back in my retail days and the customers are mad at me, I love that. I'm like a 5 on that. Like I just absolutely eat that up. But if it's if I'm out with a group of people and something odd, I am kind of like drawn to those things. I guess I'm kind of a weirdo.
Yeah.
But then there's like the really, really tragic bad stuff. Like somebody's really hurt. Somebody has passed away, like those kind of things where like your just stomach, the pit of your stomach feels terrible. Those I don't feel like I'm as good at. And I don't know if you can be good at those, but anyway, internally, I feel like I'm horrible at those situations.
I would have not guessed that you'd say that. Not because I think it's bragging. I just think that you are really, really great at navigating those. Somebody says something really silly and some of that, like if you're a good teacher, you just naturally learn to push through it. Like
I have been trained. Like I have been trained in the fires. Yeah. So there are so many things that I think to myself, if I didn't stand in front of teenagers like 40 hours a week doing this, there are things I would not be as good at, but they have truly and really trained me. They really have.
Well, yeah, there are answers even in youth group, which I think I do an okay job in youth group because of school, but kids will give answers to questions and you on the, like, I can see it all over Liam's face where he's like, oh my gosh, what was just said? And you just, move along. Oh
I
yeah,
kind of
yeah, that
like it.
works.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of like it. Yeah.
Tell me
Yeah.
more. Tell me what you, and you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
move along with it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I actually thought you would score yourself higher for that.
Okay. I also think you're a 4.8. I think you're wonderful. Yours is different than mine, though. You're like, you're kind and you're soft and you're like willing to listen. Like mine is almost always I default to humor, and sometimes that's bad. I don't have to every
I don't
time,
think
but
it's
that's just
bad.
comfortable for me. But you're just like you come across just as genuine as a human being can be, and so I think people feel comfortable with you in those situations because you're not scary. They're not thinking you're going to say something negative to them. I think you're really good. Is it? Do you
I,
also?
I do I do feel like I'm pretty good at it, but I will say this.
Okay.
I two things.
Hmm.
Growing up, I remember feeling awkward moments and thinking it was never about me not feeling awkward. It was always, I never want anyone to ever feel uncomfortable around me. So
Okay.
I will
Okay.
like, my whole brain, it's like working 3 times harder just to make sure I kind of overcompensate. And so as I've
Mm,
gotten older, I realize maybe some of that makes it extra awkward. And so I'm trying to not unlearn it because I want to be genuine and I want to remain who I
sure.
am,
Sure.
but sometimes I just overcompensate. I'll talk too much or say too
You
much
working
or
so hard to fill the awkward spaces is what makes it awkward.
yes. So
Yeah.
I've realized I'm not as good at navigating it as I thought I was. I think there are areas of growth. And I think if you had asked me the same question 5 years ago, I would have been
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, I could get into any situation. And I almost do better in those situations than just normal one-on-one situations.
Yeah. When there's some kind of crisis or something. Yeah.
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 Well, let me say this.
Okay.
I am really, really good. If there's like a fire,
Oh boy.
I am top notch. We were staying at Liam's dad's house and the fire alarm went off. And Liam is just who he is. He's like, oh, a loud noise, doesn't think about it at all. Well, I'm
Yeah.
like getting, all the stuff together, trying to
Okay.
like get out the door. And I even think before I open the door, you're supposed to touch the door and the door handle. And I'm
Okay.
thinking through how can we open the window? And his
Uh-huh.
dad was so impressed that I thought about the door handle. But for some reason in those moments, I just
We know what it is. If there is anything, again, I'm going to reference the 1 year anniversary of Beyond Sundays, even though it's in January. If there's anything we've learned about you in this year, that Captain America shield comes up, buddy. You
it really
are
does.
ready to ride to the rescue. You really are.
One time there was the storm, which again, but there was a storm at at my mom's house and it
Uh-huh.
was coming and I could see it. And my mom had a basement, but I was felt more comfortable at my grandma's in Centralia. And so I put all my siblings in my car as it was blowing in to zoom off to my grandma's. And we got like 2 miles down the road and this big branch fell down and hit my car. And I just had to back out and go back home. It was
You idiot.
it was a horrible decision. It was a horrible.
Yeah.
So yeah, social situations.
But you were genuine and kind during it, though. Well, maybe not because your
Maybe
siblings
not,
were in the car.
maybe
Yeah,
not
yeah,
because it's my
yeah,
siblings.
yeah.
But this kind of leads into what we're going to talk about
Hmm.
today when it comes to just weird things that happen. We see them every day in our own lives. But when you really start to dive into the Bible, and you've talked about this, there are so many stories that are absurd. Like,
Yes.
why, especially the Old Testament,
Yes.
their whole process. I mean, it just was strange. So we may get through 2 stories. I
Okay.
really think we may just get to
Okay.
one story today that I want to talk
Have
about.
you ever thought about why that is? Why the Old Testament has so many more of those weird stories than the New Testament? I think there's a pretty simple answer that I'm thinking of, but you may
I
have something else.
I want to hear yours first because I
Well, I
don't.
think just flat out, there are more stories in the Old Testament. If you think about the New Testament, really the only stories are the life of Jesus and in Acts. Everything else in the New Testament is all theology. It's Paul, it's
Okay.
Peter, it's James, it's John writing Revelation. So there's just fewer stories.
I just wonder if it's, and this, I'm just going to say it how I think it, but like maybe they were a little weirder in the Old Testament. Like it was more
Mm.
spiritually, and weirder is not the right word, but it was
Mm.
more spiritually based. And it feels like you get to the New Testament and you have people that feel like real people.
Mm.
And maybe
The
society
rituals in the
was,
Old Testament are certainly we're not as comfortable or familiar with. Like when they get sad, that their whole sackcloth and ash thing, and we read that and we're like, what are they doing?
yeah,
It's just not commonplace to us. So yeah, there's some like it's almost like an alien culture, sort of like we just don't
it really feels
understand
that way.
what were they doing. Yeah, those kind of things.
Which to me, you think of that 400-year gap, right?
Ooh,
Between
yeah.
the New and Old Testament or the Old
Hmm.
New Testament. I can't imagine that much changed because you had 2000 years. Well,
Yeah. Right.
whatever that time frame is,
Right.
that's pre New Testament.
Correct.
There would have been a lot that changed, but it feels like a lot stayed the same.
I
That's
think you're
what it
right.
seems like.
I think in that time period of human history, I think just period, there was less change. I think that
Yeah.
you and I and all of our listeners have grown up in a time of like intense change. And most of the people in the Bible, I don't think their lives changed as much as ours did, you know?
I wonder, and when I say technology, I don't mean literally like electronics, but
Sure.
like the technology of the day, like you said, I wonder if it was changing that much quicker in the New Testament than the Old Testament.
I don't know, maybe a little bit quicker, but I still think like they're still plowing behind an ox. You know what I'm saying? Like
It's
they
not
just, I
that
mean,
much.
human beings just did that for thousands of years. And yeah, it's all interesting.
It is
Our
so very
lives are
interesting.
so much different now than it was in the Bible, and that seems like a stupid point, but I feel like it's kind of important because when we start to read these weird stories, this is something that really popped out to me when I was reading through what you sent us, and that it's like the story we're going to focus in on. I think sounds so much worse than it actually is
Hmm.
because of the way we read it, because of the way we approach things, because our lives are so much different. I think I think sometimes we misunderstand stories in the Bible because we don't understand their culture.
100%. 100%. And then it makes you wonder, why wasn't it written to cover more culture?
Mm.
I don't know. Is there a good answer to that?
I mean, but the thing is, if you're talking about the Old Testament, you have to be talking about like these are these people's lives. So I don't
Uh,
know that you can really, I mean, they lived how they lived. So I think it's worth us trying to understand how they lived in order for us to get a better grip on what's going on in the Bible. I think we just have to do that work.
yeah. And I do want to say this. So I originally with this episode had started out with like five different stories because I wanted to talk about the weirdness of the Bible and why God places these things in the Bible. And as Matt and I started looking into this, we both realized that there is, well, for me, my takeaway from it was that you can't lump all these stories together. They don't all have one meaning and there's not one
Mm.
reason for all the weirdness. You really
Yeah.
have to dive into those stories, I feel like, individually. So yes,
Hmm.
there are some stories that are more extreme than others, but they all have depth. And this specific story that we're going to talk about is about Elisha. His in Second Kings, it is chapter 2,
Hmm.
23 through 25. And I just want to kind of set us up before we dive into it.
I can't wait for you to do this. It is so weird.
It is so weird. So I want to talk pre the portion of the story that I want to read.
Okay.
So what's happening is Elijah is walking around and clearly trying. It is very clear he's trying to get away from Elisha, SH. He keeps
Mm.
saying, I'm trying to go here. And Elisha's like, no, I'm not going. You're not going anywhere without me. And then he tries to go here and he's like, okay, you're not going. It's like three different times this happens. And finally, he's like, okay, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I want double portion of what you have. And he's like, Elijah says, okay, well, if you can see me get carried off, which in itself is
Yes.
insane
The
to me.
fiery chariot is bonkers.
It's insane. And so in that process, Elisha ends up seeing Elijah get taken off.
Uh-huh.
And this part strikes me so much. So when they were walking together, at one point, Elijah takes off his coat and wraps it up, hits,
Mhm.
these dudes are just walking and the
Yes.
water's in the way. And so
Yes.
he hits the water and
Yes.
the water separates and they walk on
Not a puddle, a river.
a river on
River.
dry ground. And to me, I bet that was nothing. That was just how Elijah lived his life.
That's
You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
just
it's
absolutely
I hate to use the
wild.
word bonkers again, but I'm just gonna use it again. Like it's just so insane. It really is.
Yes, yes. And so this is where it gets crazy to me. So Elisha sees this happen
Hmm.
and Elisha sees the chariot goes up and it's almost like, Elijah's gone. He's trying to now test the waters, test the waters here.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm. Hmm.
he like goes out and kind of does what, and I had to rewatch some of this. Did you watch Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire?
I've seen them all. All the
Okay, so
Spider-Mans.
that's
Yeah.
really the only one that I've seen. So
Okay.
in that story, whenever he gets bitten, he wakes up and he's got this beautiful body and all this stuff, and he goes to school. And this whole scene, when
We
I'm
can tell what
watching,
you were watching in that movie. Yeah.
this whole scene is wild. So he gets there and he like the web shoots out and it grabs the tray and it throws it back on the guy's head and splashes all over him. And then he fights him. And then he's like, holy cow, I've got powers. And so then he goes out and he starts to test those. He's got to
Yeah.
see, is this real?
Yeah.
And so in this story, Elisha does something so similar.
He does.
He goes back to the same area. And I just think in his head, he's probably like, does this really work? And
Yeah.
so he takes
what's
off
gonna
his,
happen here?
yeah, he takes off that coat and he hits the water as well. So that, and the water part.
Did you write down what he said?
No, what'd he say?
Yeah, he said when he hit the water, he said, "Where is the God of Elijah?" Which is
Yes.
basically an
Okay,
extension
yes.
of like, is this going okay? Was this going to work? Yeah.
Is this going to work? And
Yeah.
so when I'm reading that, I had to stop right there and ask myself, how often in our walks with God do we have that moment where we're like, okay, is what my grandma Mary or whoever experienced, is it really going to work? And how often has that happened and it not worked? That's what's kind of scary to me is I feel like there's a lot of truth to that we're not always in the same situation as Elisha. Lots of times we try it and it doesn't work. And in our generation, I feel like we then justify that, it must not be for us anymore.
Do you think that happened in biblical times and those instances are just not in our Bibles though?
I think that would be really, yes, but I think that would be, okay, so let me reword that because I was going to say, I think that would be really jerky if that's the case.
Hey, God, the Bible's jerky.
But I'm just like, don't you think he would want to give us that sort of insight? But then I start to think, if he's showing us examples of where God is really working, then that's enough for us to know, okay, maybe God's not really working here.
Okay. So you're basically talking about the issue of like confirmation.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get confirmation? When do we seek it out? Do we get it? Are we sometimes seeking it in the wrong instances, right? Where we don't need confirmation or God doesn't want us to look for confirmation. That is a whole twisted web of stuff that I think you can really get yourself tangled up in. I mean, there's some New Testament stuff like knocking the door will be open to you, seeking you will find. So I do think you have to do that sometimes. But then I think sometimes we're not doing it like Elisha. We're doing it for our own vanity and our own purpose, and we want to like prove ourselves somehow. But I don't know. Is that what Elisha was doing?
I know. I do think that he was questioning, do I have this?
Okay.
I mean, I guess maybe he had to get across the water, but by golly, I feel like a lot of times I've needed to quote unquote get across the water and my cloak didn't separate anything,
Okay. All right.
So
okay.
it's like, I don't know. I don't
well,
know the
Elisha
answer.
clearly has some stuff going for him that you and I do not have going for us
Mhm.
because you're going to keep telling the story and it's going to, I mean, maybe even more insane than the chariot of fire. Like, so there's something going on with Elijah and Elisha that is not going on with Matt and Hannah.
And maybe what happened, maybe that instance too, obviously it was powerful, but maybe we do have those instances, but because the big crazy stuff overtakes it, we don't recognize where God was working and did a miracle.
Okay.
So it could be that. So Elisha hits the water, which again, I find crazy. And so then he's on his way to what they would consider the house of God. It was Bethel was the area. And that area had been really taken over by adultery and people that just were not living for God anymore. So that's kind of where we get to. I think the journey has a lot of significance here.
Yes.
His walking back, the path back, that he was obedient in it and going back to where God was calling him to go. But I do believe it sets him up for his ministry. And this is where maybe one of my favorite stories in the Bible ever happened. So these boys come out, and I'll tell it real quick so we can talk about it. So these boys come out and they're like, hey, Baldy, hey, go up, Baldy. Elisha gets angry. Elisha sends, he curses them, and God sends bears out to maul them and to kill them. And that's kind of it.
That's what happened. 42 of those boys died.
Yeah.
For calling Elisha Baldy.
Yeah. Baldy.
Baldy.
I have been called worse things than that.
On TikTok.
Liam and I open those up every once in a while just to read the
I have also been called worse things in my life. Can I tell you? I don't know exactly where you want to take us, so I don't want to step on a place that you want to go. Can I tell you that just a surface level reading of this makes me really question, God, is this the right thing? Did the right
hmm
thing happen here? It is really, really difficult for me to read this story and be like, man, those 42 kids, they deserve to be mauled by she bears.
Yeah.
First of all, what does that look like?
First of all, what's a she bear? I didn't really
I
know
mean,
what a she
just
bear.
a female bear, I
Okay,
think.
that's what I
Right.
thought. I didn't know if
Yeah.
there was something more specific. Like,
Not
okay,
Yogi, but whatever the girl version of the bear is. Yeah.
it wasn't a nice bear. Yeah, I'm wondering
So they're in a
too,
group, and this bear just runs them down, claws them up, runs them over, kills 42 of them. Two bears, 21 each.
and he just watches.
I guess.
But I've wondered too, along that same lines, especially just reading it over the years, what was the purpose in this? God,
Yes.
why? Because we're taught to turn the other cheek, and it doesn't feel like in this instance
No.
that he was turning the other cheek.
On something real surface level, to be honest with you. Hey, bro, your hairline's a little rusty. To just translate this into Gen Z speak. And then he's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, here come the bears, right?
Did you say he was? It was a little rusty.
Rusty? I don't know. Maybe that's not Gen Z speak anymore.
I don't speak Gen Z. I don't
I
have
just
the.
felt like the hairline being rusty would indicate that I don't know if he's got male pattern baldness, full baldness. I don't know what's going on, but it really seems, I mean, it seems so surface level.
It
It
really
just
does.
making fun of the way that Elisha looks on first read. And you're like, they died for that?
Yeah. And then I feel like you start reading more into it. And something that I found interesting is he is going back to a place that had started to lose its spirituality. So there was a decline of the spirit. What I found so crazy is there's an increase of power. And
Mm.
so again, I started to relate that to my life and think how often, especially in this generation, are we walking in a country in a world that has a decline of the spirit that really isn't looking for the spirit or they're searching out other things, but God has given us an influx of power. And when you see that and those two run into each other, it did not end well for the other people.
Oh, not at all. Much you like getting mauled by a bear. It did not end well at all.
And it makes you kind of question, like, again, that turn the other cheek method,
Yeah.
when you first read it. So, um, the boys too was something else I found interesting, and I want to see what you say about this. Is
Mhm.
it says they were like soldiers? They were old enough to be soldiers, so these were grown men in this instance. These were not just little bitty kids. And when they came out, they were mocking him. And
Yes.
42, I mean, this isn't just two boys saying, "Hey, your hairline is bad." It felt kind
Correct.
of more like a mob, right?
Yes. Yes.
More
That's
of this.
exactly what I think. When I started looking into the details, I think that this is potentially kind of a dangerous situation for Elisha.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's exactly 42 or some of them escaped the mauling, but I think these are like late teenage males. And you hitting on what's going on Bethel is so key because Bethel is supposed to be the place of God, but it's this like Jeroboam center of idol worship. And so here are a huge group of late teenage boys coming to mock the man of God. And also that go up, Baldy, that go up
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
situation. I think they're kind of trying to tell him like, hey, Elijah went up in the chariot. So they're like questioning his leadership, they're questioning his authority, they're questioning his ministry, they're questioning a lot of those things. I get the feeling that this is like not a group of late teenage men that you want to run into in a back alley. I think this is kind of dangerous for Elisha because I
Yeah.
just have to start thinking to myself, okay, Elisha cursed them. He didn't call the bears. Elisha cursed them, and then God sent the bears. And so I
Yeah.
have to think to myself, there has to have been something about this situation that made God feel like having these boys be mauled by a bear was the right thing. So it can't just be like the Sunday school version of like some 5-year-olds are like snickering at him because he's bald. It can't be that. It's got to be considerably worse than that if they're going to die.
Well, and something else I found too is that part of the Nazarite vow was that they had uncut hair.
Mm.
And so calling out the fact that he was bald was questioning his spiritual power and really his position. And I don't know why I get kind of uh this weirdness and maybe this callous towards this idea of spiritual authority and
Okay.
I have never
I knew we'd have to go here today, and I was interested to see what you'd say. Yeah.
I I don't know why I feel this callous towards it at times, but I do. But when it's one of those things that it's like God's word is pressing against that callus, and underneath it, and maybe this is wrong, maybe this is wrong, but underneath that callus, maybe there is a little bit of a hidden, and I'm not talking like this weird church hurt, but maybe this hidden wound. And so instead of learning to
Mm.
reconcile it, I just, anytime I hear about spiritual authority, I just get a little like,
You have a
it's like
negative connotation.
yeah, my
Yeah.
spidey senses kind of go up, and I don't feel that I have
A lot
issues.
of Spider-Man from you today.
I know, what is
Yeah.
that?
I
I
like
don't
it.
know.
I like it.
Either way, I guess I need to watch it tonight or something.
Mm.
But I don't know if it's because I've seen. Let me say this: I don't feel that I have issues submitting to authority. That's
Okay.
not really been an issue, but I have seen a lot of times where I felt like the man of God, and this is not just specifically the churches I've been in. So I'm not trying to point fingers. This is, I've seen it all over from friends, things like
Hmm.
that,
Hmm.
who have had people in charge who have made decisions and have been honored as these prophets and these pastors. And those people were never held accountable for the things they were doing. And we almost put them on these pedestals. But here you're seeing a man of God who, to me, kind of the theme that it's speaking is, this is serious. We're not going to question what I have put into position.
Correct.
Is that what you're seeing in this?
It is 100% what I'm seeing. And I was just, while you were talking, I believe everything that you just said. And I have that same kind of feeling in my heart that you have in your heart, that it's just like a little bit of resistance to the
Mm-hmm.
spiritual authority kind of thing. And I was trying to consider where that comes from. And like most things, I think it's probably more than one ingredient. I don't think it's just one thing. But I think some of it is like, we're American, and if
Yeah.
we don't like what the president does, we'll just shout it on social media, what we don't that we don't like what the president does. Well, God's not the president, right? That
Mm-mm.
is not how you treat God. You don't treat him like you treat the US president. And then I feel like we're just inundated with stories of people in all different kinds of authority using their authority in wrong ways. I think there are all kinds of stories of teachers doing things to and with students that shouldn't be done. There are police officers that occasionally treat people in ways that should not be treated. There are all kinds of church leaders, and we've done episodes about it on this very podcast right here, that use their authority and the trust that people give to them in ways that hurt the people. And like you said, then so I just think that we live in a society that is very distrusting of authority and that concept of authority. And that really, so for us to read it in 2025 through our eyes, this story really clashes hard against the way that we feel about some of these issues.
And I do think one of the problems is we all think that we are Elisha.
Mm.
And I mean, you look in our city alone, and there's like 60 churches, and maybe not 60, it's like 50. I think, I mean, it's very high up
It's a
there.
lot.
Um, and it's like everybody wants to be a pastor, but we don't want to be pastored. And so we think that we should have that level of authority. But then as the flock,
Yeah.
using those biblical terms, how do you know which shepherd is truly the shepherd and which ones are not? Because that's, to me, where the some of that, not disrespect, but some of that questioning comes in for me, because I don't feel for the boys yelling Baldy, especially after I found out that they weren't just a bunch of kids throwing rocks. Like,
Hmm.
it was probably pretty scary. It felt like it was a mob. But I just don't know how you balance that as the sheep looking for your shepherd.
Yeah. I promise this is going to connect. Were you spanked as a kid?
Yes.
I was too. I kind of feel like the Old Testament is, if I can use this terminology, is God parenting as though he is parenting little children. When you're
Mm-hmm.
a kid, when I'm a kid, if we do something wrong, we get spanked immediately. We get told no immediately. Like, the consequences right there. These boys are, I'm not going to call them boys anymore. These young men
Mm-hmm.
are mocking and threatening and doing stuff to Elisha. And so God just gives them what he thinks about them right then. The New Testament to me is more like parenting. I'm parenting a teenager and a preteen. I do not spank my children anymore. There
Yeah.
are different ways that I handle that. So I feel like this era of grace that we're living in, we no longer get that just immediate consequences from God. But you don't have to read very far into the end of the Bible to realize that this is how God is going to deal with the consequences of evil and bad behavior. Those consequences have not changed at all. They've just been delayed. And for us to not receive those kind of consequences immediately, I think it really changes how this whole issue that you're talking about with spiritual authority, I think it really changes how we interact with that. Because for
Hmm.
you and I, we can do something that's kind of disrespectful to spiritual authority, or we can question it. We're not going to get mauled by a bear right now. But at the end of time, when God is judging us, that judgment's coming. It's there.
Yikes. Because then I'm like, what if they were doing something they shouldn't be? That's on them,
Who,
I guess, right?
what do you mean? That these young men?
No, I mean like the quote unquote prophets or the quote
Oh,
unquote
yes. Sure.
they will be held accountable for that.
I mean, if you're a prophet, or to use your terminology in 2025, you're a pastor, if you're a,
Yeah.
I think you absolutely do not want to come face to face with God at the end of time if you have been messing with your status and not using your power and your status in the right. I think that's going to be an extremely ugly conversation with God.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be worse than the boys. You know what
Way
I
worse
mean?
than the boys. Yes.
I
Yes,
think
I
it's
think
gonna
hell
be.
is worse than the she bears. I really do. I do. I
So
do.
I also think about I don't even know where exactly to go with this or if you saw this, but this collective rebellion and this idea that the
Mm.
whole area that was meant to be holy just changed so dramatically. And it was by influence. And I don't know why. Again, maybe I'm just again getting into my old person era, but I think about, our society and the pushback again against religion and the pushback against structure and spiritual authority and those sort of things. Um, I do feel like a lot of that is this collective thing that we have all okayed. We've all looked at each other and been like, okay, yeah, that's right. We've all been bothered and hurt by these things. And I think it's shifted our mindset in a way that
Mm.
um I think it's taking us further from God.
Oh, it at 100% is. And I, I'm just going to use another TikTok thing because it just cracks me up when it happens. So I got on TikTok this morning and I posted just a little hit that you and I did, like, hey, we got a new episode out. We do this every week. We post it all the time.
Mhm.
And somebody got on our TikTok account and we were like, hey, check out our episode. And in the comment, the person said, actually, no one cares. And so I commented back and I was like, well, thanks for taking the time to interact with us. We really appreciate it. I said, maybe if you listen to the episode, maybe you would care, you know? And then the person commented back again and was like, no, thanks. And so I was like, okay, great. Thanks again for your time. Your time is valuable, blah, blah. It's just nice to the person. But I'm thinking like people are so, and listen, you and I are not Elisha. We're not anything,
No.
right? Our TikTok account isn't anything. But people are super quick to do that now. But Hannah, isn't this mob of late teen boys? Aren't they kind of doing the same thing? They're mocking
Oh,
it. They're throwing it in Elisha's face. You're bald. You're stupid. You go up like Elijah did. It's that same kind of animating spirit. And so, like, in a lot of human history that has changed, as you and I have been discussing, but in some cases, that's why these stories are timeless. Rebellion is still a thing. It just looks different. There are keyboard warriors that do it now. That kind of spiritual stuff, it's still
it's still the
happening.
same. It
Yeah.
just looks a little bit different now than it did thousands of years ago.
Thousands of years ago when those
They're
bears started
mean.
running out the woods. Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder too, like in my own walk,
Yeah.
I've worked so hard to like create a space where Christianity looks appealing. Now, I don't feel like, let me say it like this. This is not something new for me or that's happened in the last 5 years. This has been since I've been a teenager. I wanted people to see that, hey, quote unquote, normal people do this too. Maybe that's wrong to say, but I've tried to
I
present
know what
that.
you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
You
But
there are enough hurdles for somebody to get to Jesus.
yeah,
You don't want to create more because you're a weirdo.
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
I do wonder. I think again, those spidey senses or that weirdness comes up again when when you do feel that like pressing or that taunting, because at
Mm,
the end of the day, there are things that God expects from us. Same with Elisha walking back this road, this difficult road to this place where he was going to have to do things for God, much like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That is expected of us. And I think we kind of tiptoe around that idea that God is going to require something of us, so that we can make it more presentable to other people. And I don't know how much I really do that. I don't know. It just gives me this
So what
kind
you're
of,
saying is Elisha wasn't really worried about that.
I don't think he was. I don't think he
I think the
was.
bears say he was not, right?
I don't know, but then I guess we don't know. Yeah. I guess we don't know in his mind though. Maybe he was still worried about it. Maybe that's the whole reason he tested
Mhm.
the cloak at the beginning, was because
Mhm.
he's like, I know where I'm going back to. I have to know what I
Mhm.
have with me.
That's really good. I need to know if this is going to work or not because I think God's asking me to do really hard things. I need to know if God's got my back or not.
That cooks right there.
It does cook.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause isn't that the reality of it all, though? Like, no matter what time frame you're in, no matter if we're still here in 2000 years and we're not real people, just beep bop robot kind of thing, you know?
Beyond Sundays is AI. It's still AI us. They've just
Yeah,
taken our likeness and we're still pumping out episodes 2,000 years
yeah,
later.
yeah.
Oh, I hope not for humanity's sake.
I hope not too. But yeah, I mean, like that same theme that Christianity is about doing hard things. It's about doing things
Yes.
that are against the grain. And I think that's kind of the heart of what I was getting to, is like, sometimes I want to just be able to live and do, but the things that we do believe are going to go against the grain, and there will be pushback from it. There will be the baldy people.
Yes, there are. There are. It goes back to, I want to say two things real quick. One is it goes back to when you walked us through Psalms. These are the people sitting in the seat of the mockers.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. I mean, this is like literally mocking Elisha, but there's some kind of spirit to that. And again, I think it's a spirit we can trace all the way through time until now. And then the second thing I was going to say is I really like what you're saying about having to live in, work in, and be in environments in 2025 where the culture is not focused on or around Jesus. And I've also feel big time in my heart and my spirit. I feel that pull to, well, I need to like make connections with these people. I
Mm-hmm.
need to be open with them. I need to love them. But I can't go so far as that I start compromising what God's word said to me and the things like
Yeah.
that. And so I think the way that Elisha reacted in this situation is just so very interesting because he didn't mess around. He just cursed them in the
Mm-hmm.
name of the Lord. Now, I'm of the belief, and I don't know if you are the belief, I'm of the belief that Elisha cursed them in the name of God. And then the rest of that story was God. I don't
Oh yeah.
necessarily think, I think Elisha was doing that. But the way that Elisha stood in this place that should be holy, but was just rank with idol worship, got pushed by this dangerous group of people and just basically like didn't try to compromise them, just said, no, God curse you. And then God obviously took the rest of it. That is a very interesting way to walk around in life.
Yeah,
What
it
what
is.
lessons does that hold for us now though? Like is what should we be emulating from Elisha? Where do we draw those lines between what you're so eloquently talking about, which is you want to fit in with people, you want to love people, you want to let people come to you, versus I think it's safe. Isn't it safe to call Elisha a non-compromiser?
Yeah, yeah. But
Like
I
he
also
did
think
not mess around.
he didn't no, but he, like you said, he wasn't the one calling the bears.
Correct.
He didn't call them out. It was almost like he let God have his vengeance. And
Yeah.
so I think that can be really difficult, because I think God's vengeance now, it doesn't always happen right. We're not
It's
seeing,
delayed. It's
it's
always delayed.
delayed.
Yes.
It's delayed. And I think that
That's
that is
very interesting.
really difficult to deal
Hmm,
with at times, because
hmm,
it feels like God isn't responding,
hmm.
feels like God isn't handling the issue. But like, I don't know why I want to say this so badly, but like the cross references, when you start looking at those to the scripture, it I was amazed at the number of times it talks about mockery and talks about mocking the people of God and how
Yes.
terrible it is. And it's in New and Old Testament. I mean, it is the Bible is littered with how God will handle those people.
Hmm.
And so I think in our case, the best thing to do is kill people with kindness, and to continue to stand on, this is my thought, to continue to stand on truth, but to allow God to handle. I think you're doing it best on, if people really want to know how to do it, I think they need to look at our TikTok.
Okay. Okay. I mean,
I'm
what is
serious.
in my head is Jesus does say, turn the other cheek. right? I do think, okay, so I think the Old Testament and the New Testament are linked, and I think you can't have one without the other. But I do think they're different in some ways, in that God's dishing out vengeance and justice right there on the spot in the Old Testament, and it is delayed in the New Testament. We're walking and living in this new era. So I'm going to close a circle that you and I talk about a lot. Do you think at all that there are people who, as Christians, feel like, oh, I can't compromise in this situation. I can't compromise in that situation. And what they would like to have happen is they would like to, Elisha style, have God's vengeance come down right there and balance the scales of justice. But that doesn't happen because this is the New Testament era and God is waiting until the end of time. And so those people, some Christians, take it into their own hands and they feel like they've got to be God's justice. And so they act. Elisha did not. He simply cursed them in the name of the Lord, and then he stepped back. So I think if you're going to label Elisha as this like non-compromise guy, that's fine. But Elisha didn't do this. Elisha didn't kill these people. That wasn't his role or his job. And I think sometimes as modern Christians, we try to stand in, and I'm using this metaphorically, obviously, we try to go ahead and kill the people rather than just cursing them and letting God take care of what God needs to take care of.
Yeah, we try to be what I said last week, where we tried to do what we think God can't handle or is just taking too long to do. And in both of these, I think you said it so well, in both of these situations, God handled it. Both of them, God handled it. And I think that's key, is trusting God. Then you may have handled it like this, and later you're going to handle it like this, but I'm going to step back. My job is to turn the other cheek. And I think that's where we get ourselves confused, is we see God use all this vengeance, and he does. And he says he will, but he uses the vengeance. Correct. Our job is to turn the other cheek. And just because we turn the other cheek does not mean that God's vengeance will not happen. It does not mean that we think things are okay or right or acceptable in God's eyes. It's just, it has never been our job to serve the vengeance.
I think that's a beautiful way to put that. We don't have to do it. Turning the other cheek does not mean you're weak. Turning the other cheek does not mean you've changed your beliefs. That's not what any of that indicates. It just indicates that you're trying to emulate the life of Jesus. And God, I promise everybody out there, God is going to set the scales right for everything in the world. The world is going to be perfect again someday. We're living in a shatteringly imperfect world. Yeah. It's going to be perfect again, but we have got to let God do it while we don't compromise, believe the right things, and think what right. We've got to stay true to God, but we're not God's justice. We're not the ones swinging the sword or like ripping the bear claws down people's back. That's not us. That's not us.
That is a terrible picture. So to end this, I do want to say two things. First of all, Elisha and his story is way more relatable than we recognize.
Yes.
He was questioning something that an incredible man of God told him and confirmed to him, hey, you're going to get double the portion. He still had to confirm it. He still had to walk the hard road. He still had to face the difficult people. And then God took care of the vengeance. So I think it's important to recognize that. But I also want to say this. When you are reading the word and you read stories like this, don't wait 5 years like I did to deep dive into what is being said. Because to be honest, oh gosh, maybe I was the mocker. I have laughed and laughed and laughed. You mean he called him Baldy? That's hilarious.
I mean, it is still funny though. It is. It is. It's funny. I'm sorry.
But I always thought, like, why would he take offense to something like that? I never realized the depth of it. Yeah. And so I encourage people, when you come across this stuff, these weird stories in the Bible, deep dive into those. Use the resources that Matt and I have talked about. And I'm so excited that you introduced me to that, to using Bible Hub and recognizing that the context makes a complete difference. And it allows you to recognize themes that you may have never recognized before.
Yes.
So I do want to thank you all for joining us today. We always enjoy going beyond Sundays, and we hope that you enjoyed our crazy conversation today. If you have any thoughts or comments about our topic or anything else, or any suggestions about things you want us to talk about, please reach out. Go to beyondSundaysPod.com for our show links and socials. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you from all the bears.
She-bear's gonna get you.